All right, and we're live. Welcome to More Than Numbers, where the numbers are just the beginning. All right, so we're going to start off with some college football. Dave's been itching to get back into this topic with me because
It's
he's
been a good
just been
season.
laughing at my predictions a couple weeks ago. It comes back to bite you a little bit, but hey, man,
I try
that's
to
the
tell you.
fun of it. So, Dave, I want to start off by talking about the rankings and who is in your top four. So
Top four.
currently they have Georgia at one, Michigan at two, Ohio State at three, and Florida State at four. Now, I believe some new rankings are going to drop here in the next couple weeks, which is going to be the big determining factor on who's really in the
Yes.
playoff or not. So
Yeah.
give me your predictions right now on who you think should be in the top four, who's going to end on it.
All right. All right. So, the college football playoff rankings. Those are the only ones that matter. Those are coming out in about a week. Because those are going to be actually voted on by the committee. If I was the committee, I would have Georgia at one. They haven't lost yet, even though they haven't done anything too crazy. I would put them at one. I would actually put Ohio State at two. I'd put Michigan at three, and I'd put Florida State at four. But at the end of the day, you still have the Ohio State and Michigan game coming up,
Mm-hmm.
so someone's going to have a loss. So I think that there's an easy opportunity for Oklahoma or Washington State to sneak in there. That's what
So
I got.
why did you move? Why did you move Ohio State over Michigan right now at 2-3? Why the change there?
I don't think Michigan has, in my opinion, a marquee win yet.
Mm-hmm.
Where Ohio State already beat Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I think both of them have their strengths and weaknesses, I think that Ohio State's done just a little more. Um, if I had my way, I would put Florida State at two, and then have them two at three and four. But uh, LSU has done well, right? LSU's done well, not well, but they've kept the boat afloat at least. But Clemson hasn't done well. So Florida State's
Mm-hmm.
wins, um, though they're wins, some of them don't look as good. Like Boston
Right.
College only winning small.
Mm-hmm.
Clemson is just it, that's there's a reason why there's a term called Clemsoning. So
Right. I mean, yeah, you're looking at LSU. No, I mean, LSU's ranked 15 right now at 6-2, so that's good for Florida State.
yeah,
When do we play Notre Dame? When does Florida State play Notre Dame?
they don't.
They don't play them this year?
No,
Oh,
no.
okay. I'm a bit surprised by that. I thought they did. Okay. So something that I wanted to ask you because maybe it was more so me on how I ranked. Last time we went over this, obviously I had put Texas at one, and unfortunately for me, they lose to
Yeah,
Oklahoma at home,
yep.
right? But I had put Texas originally a couple weeks ago at one because they had a marquee win, whereas Georgia and Michigan really didn't. So why
Okay.
for you, where with Michigan, right? You said they haven't really beaten anybody marquee yet, right? I don't
I
think
don't think
Georgia
they've
has
done
either.
anything that crazy.
So with Ohio State being undefeated with a marquee win versus Notre Dame, although potentially lucky, why would that not bump Ohio State to one, Georgia two, Michigan three, maybe Florida State four? Like, why
I
doesn't
don't
that
think
marquee matter enough with these preseason rankings? Like, as long as they don't lose, they don't move. Like, that's part of what I don't really get sometimes.
I don't because it's very hard. Uh, Give me one second. I'm pulling up the Michigan schedule here. Let's see here. Um, Minnesota, I mean, they won their rivalry game. Oh, that's okay. They won their rivalry game, but it's Michigan State. They won it 49-0, right? They've beaten
Easily.
everybody convincingly, but
Right.
again, nobody that really sticks out and you're like, wow, okay, you beat, them.
Hmm.
You've only beaten your worst rival, and you beat them bad. Um,
Right.
but as far as your question about Georgia, um, they've won back-to-back titles, and they're still undefeated. So um, unless something crazy happens, like one of their powder puff games comes down to the wire, and they have to win on a field goal, I would find it very difficult to move them from the one spot if they keep winning.
Okay, so really with the rankings, like from these preseason rankings, really unless like no amount of marquee wins is going to move a team up as long as those teams don't lose. Because that's what I think is wrong sometimes with college football with these rankings is if you don't have a tough schedule, right? And yeah, you do your
Right.
job and you lose, right? And it just it there's no movement sometimes with those top two, three teams until like again Ohio State maybe plays a Michigan, and then it's like, well, does
Well,
one of them drop out of the playoff because of one game at the end of the season where they were in the rankings the whole time? So
well,
sometimes I
this is
wish there
what
was
we
a
ran
little bit
into
more.
with UCF.
Say that again.
Do you remember a few years back, UCF was on a tangent, right? They were winning everything. They were winning all, a lot. They had
Hmm.
that undefeated season, et cetera, et cetera. But and UCF fans just kept saying, "Oh, well, the only thing we can do is play our schedule and beat who's in front of us." Yeah, that's true, right? But if I'm playing against Power 5 schools and you're playing against Group of 5 schools, we don't have the same uh, resume to
Hmm.
go because the playoff committee, they're
So
looking at your resume. You
let me
see what I'm
cut you
saying?
there. Absolutely, I totally agree with that. But what happens if you're both in a Power Five conference? So in this instance, the where I get to you is Ohio State. Ohio State ranked three right now.
Hmm.
In the top four, you would say arguably has one of the better marquee wins, right? So
Right,
why would they're in the Big Ten, arguably the best conference besides maybe the
right now.
Pac-12 and SEC right now. So with their only marquee win, Georgia not, Michigan not, why does that not push them into a one and still keeps Georgia at a two, Michigan at a three, Florida State at a four? That's just what I'm curious on with the rankings
Because
sometimes.
because no matter what, you can't with a sound mind move Georgia if Georgia keeps winning.
But
You
that's
can't do
only,
that
but this is what's interesting. How come they do that with every other team when it's not the top ranking? So for example, if I'm a team that starts we'll say at Texas. I started at Texas as 15 in the nation preseason
Okay.
ranking. Now I'm winning games, so I move up.
Right.
Why can't that happen with teams in the top two, three, or four that don't lose
Because
fluctuate?
they've already solidified. Okay, so with this before the college football playoff and them actually voting on it, it's on a points system. It's kind of the same way as the men's FIFA rankings. It's on a points
Hmm.
system, right? So you might see a team have, let's say, 1,600 points, right? But then the team right below them that you're like, oh, they should be above them. Well, they're close. They're at like 1570, you know.
Hmm.
But based off of the way it's doing its thing, it's not. They just don't have the
Right.
points.
It's
But
obviously
also,
strength of schedule, but it's still based off of strength of schedule, meaning who they play their opponents, who their opponents play,
right.
how their opponents finish.
And remember, it's
Based
how
off
your
of
games look.
home, right? Well, I know it's aesthetics, but it's also based off of like home wins, away, spread, like how much did you beat them by, turnovers, like margin of victory. I understand it goes into all of that, and it's still like you go with
Yeah.
the eye test on they're just dominating, nobody looks like them.
Right.
And I completely get that again to a certain point, right? Again, right now, you are essentially saying, well, Georgia was ranked one at the beginning of the season. They haven't lost, so they don't deserve to be moved off of one, but it was a preseason ranking. So as you go into the season, it's like, okay, they haven't lost, but let's look at who they've played. Let's look at the other teams that are undefeated, the other teams that are undefeated and who they've played. And then based off of where we're at now, this is where people should be ranked. So,
Right.
we'll go into circles with that. Obviously, Georgia should be in the top four. I'm not saying they're moved out of it. And we're really speaking that it doesn't really have matter, with the rankings right now, because obviously it's based off of the end of the season.
Right.
Um, but it is interesting to me how obviously essentially all the other rankings can move up or down. Granted, it's based off of wins and losses, but the teams that are sometimes preseason ranked at the top, if they don't lose, they never fluctuate. Very
Yeah.
interesting most of the time. Okay, so top four you gave, if I'm not mistaken, you gave Georgia 1, you had Ohio State 2, Michigan 3, Florida State 4.
Yes.
I think that I think you're spot on with that. I even though I went into this whole segment about Ohio State, right? Should they be 1?
Yeah.
I think obviously you're right. You would still have Georgia at 1. I think Ohio State 2, Michigan 3, and I think you have to keep Florida State at 4. Although Oklahoma, with the win against Texas, right now being undefeated, I think the win against Texas is better than Florida State's win versus LSU. Um, so that's going to be an interesting one coming to the end of the season here, because right now Washington's also 7-0. So Washington's right behind them at 5, Oklahoma at 6.
I don't. I.
Do
I don't
you
know. I think
think?
that's tough.
Well, do you think? Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Do you think if all teams win out? So I don't know that we have Washington scheduled. Does Washington does not play Oklahoma. So if Washington wins out, Oklahoma wins out because I believe they would have to play Texas again, and Florida State wins out. Who do you think falls into the 4? Do you think they keep Florida State, or do you think a Washington or Oklahoma falls into the 4, knocking Florida State out of the playoff?
Um, I think at that point you want to see what the country wants, right? Um, Washington State I'm sorry, Washington. They're like a Nebraska or like a Wyoming. You know, this is a place that nobody like. Yeah, you're winning games, but that's not gonna get merchandise sales. That's not gonna get the money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that sounds crazy, and that almost makes it sound like, they're picking base just off that. But again, college football is also part of the eye test, right?
Right. Well, it's
So
still about brands at the end of the day.
yeah,
So what
and
what brand is
out
bigger,
of those,
Washington or Florida State? This
Florida State would be
this
in.
woo, who's a bigger brand, Washington or Florida State? It's got to be Florida State, right?
Florida State, big time,
Got to
big
be
time.
Florida State. Okay. But Oklahoma, but see now this is where it gets interesting. Oklahoma or Florida State, because both are,
It would be
I'd say,
It
equal
would be Florida.
brands.
It would be Florida State, and they would say, "Well, let's see. The last time, if somebody in that room is just saying, okay, well, let's see what happened the last time these two played. Well, last year, Florida State played Oklahoma in a bowl game and beat them.
But do you think they count last year? Because they're not supposed to. It's supposed to just be based off
It's the
this
human
year.
in you. You know,
You think
it's
that's
like
the
when you're a
human in?
lawyer and you say something, and the judge is like, the jury will disregard. You can't. I've already heard it.
I've already
You
heard
said it.
semantics
You
at this
know,
point, guys. It
you
doesn't
can
matter.
tell me not to, but you said it.
So yeah, as a Florida State fan, here everyone heard that. As a Florida State fan, Dave is counting on the human error to get Florida State
It's not the human
to get
error. It's
Florida
not the
State
human.
in.
It's
You
making the
heard it here
right
first.
call. Make the right call.
All right. I would agree with you there. I would hope, obviously, as a Florida State fan as well, I would hope Florida State gets in. But it would be interesting because that means, Oklahoma would have beaten Texas twice. And I don't think Texas loses again until they potentially have to play Oklahoma in their conference final. So that would be really interesting. A lot of the talk that I'm hearing is that a lot of people think that Texas will beat them the second time around.
Okay.
You never know. So we'll see what happens there. But I agree with your top 4. All right. Next one I want to get into. I've been dreading this a little bit. I think I'm still gonna be okay. I don't think my opinion on it was that wrong. But
Go ahead.
Colorado. Gotta talk about Colorado and that stinking collapse that they had against Stanford. Obviously Deion Sanders, you saw his locker room talk, said it himself. Absolutely embarrassing. What was it? 29 nothing at half, and then to lose
I'm, listen,
46
last time I
43.
saw somebody give something up like that, it was a Falcon. You know what I mean?
Eesh. Wait, God, is there any time you can't throw in a Brady reference? Is there?
I don't know. I
We
don't
could be
know.
talking
Maybe.
about NBA. We can be talking about NBA, and Dave's gonna be like, Brady. Yeah.
Hey, Hey, speaking of, really quick, I just want to take 3 seconds to say congratulations because he signed as a partial owner of the Las Vegas Aces. So my man just got another ring. So good on you, buddy.
Oh yeah, now you think he's going to start getting into own? Well, obviously he got into some ownership, but that will be interesting to see where he lands with owning teams and whatnot. But so we'll give a congrats to Brady there. He bought in specifically just to win another ring. I think that was
Oh
the.
my God.
I
Oh
think
my
that's
God.
why he
Hey,
did it.
work smarter, not harder. Okay. But
Clip it.
yes,
Clip
Colorado
it. Clip
collapse.
that right there. Work smarter, not harder. All right, so Colorado.
Colorado collapse.
Colorado collapse absolutely killed me. Um, but I don't think I was that wrong so far with my predictions. Right when we had spoke, they were about to play USC. They played
Mm-hmm.
USC a lot closer than I thought. You were actually right, thinking that it was going to be a decently close game. I think we're now seeing that USC is very overranked
Of
than
course.
really where they
Absolutely.
are. Clearly. Um, and Caleb Williams really struggling against the better teams is what we're seeing. So definitely overranked there. But we're gonna stay on Colorado. So Dave, originally you had asked me if I thought Colorado would be bowl eligible at the end of the
Right.
season, and
Okay.
undoubtedly I say yes. They have 5 games remaining. They play UCLA next. They play Oregon State after. Then
Okay.
they play Arizona, Washington State, Utah. They have Arizona at home, and then Oregon State at home, and the rest of the games are away. But
Okay.
I think I think they lose to UCLA. Well, see, this is where it's going to get tough because I think they do it in their last 3 games of the season. I think they I think they lose to UCLA. I think they lose to Oregon State. I think they beat Arizona. I think they beat Washington State. And then I think they now lose to Utah. So I do think they get their 6 wins, but I think they only get 2 wins out of their last 5. So I think they finish, what, 6-6? And I do think they're
Mm.
bowl eligible at that point. But they play, I mean, UCLA right now ranked 23, Oregon State ranked 11th, Utah ranked 13th.
Okay.
Part of me wants to say they win one of those ranked games, but seeing that defense right now, it, just the amount of points they're giving up in essentially every game besides, Arizona State. I mean, teams are scoring on them left and right. So they have to score, they have to win in a shootout, essentially. They're not
Well,
winning anything on defensive plays. So, you know, could they nick one of those games? Like, could they nick one of the games between UCLA, Oregon State, Utah? Yes, I do think they can. I'm just not seeing it right now. They barely got out of Arizona State with the win. Before that, obviously, we saw a good, score wise, we saw a good score against USC, but really they were out of it for a lot of it. And then same
right.
with Oregon, they got demolished. So I don't think they have the defense right now. I think they have the offense, but without being able to stop, realistically almost anybody, I can't see them winning the majority of their 5 games. So I think they do. I think they only get 2 wins out of their next 5. And I'm gonna pick them against the non-ranked teams right now. So because they have Arizona at home, and then they go away to Washington State, but I just don't think Washington State is strong enough. So I think they finish 6-6, and I think they are bowl eligible.
Do you remember when Lamar Jackson first started playing with the Ravens,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they were running that triple option, college style offense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were killing it, and they were doing great, right? Problem is, people pick up on that. People watch tape, now they know what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's all professionals. Colorado, you heard him say it. We're not there yet, right? Colorado doesn't have those guys yet. And
Mm-hmm.
now people know exactly what that offense wants to do, and they know exactly how to exploit the defense.
Mm-hmm.
I can honestly say I can see them winning one game. out of the next five. One game. I don't even know which one it's going to be. But I can't because what I can see is I can see a team that has been built and fed with a lot of hype,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, but you're not that team right now, you know, and obviously you keep getting commitments. You could be that team, right? But you have a long way to go before you're considered, you know, a national powerhouse. You know, um, you're still in a position where if you lose another, let's say they go this week and they lose to
Mm-hmm.
UCLA, right? Now you're on a skid. Okay, now you're on a skid, and you're basically now going to have to rely on some of the leaders in that locker room to hold it together. Because if not, now you just put your hands up because you're going down on the roller
Mm-hmm.
coaster.
I see. I get where you're going with that. Obviously, I think the next 2 weeks are tough. UCLA, Oregon State, but I think because they then have Arizona at home and then Washington State. Not saying easy wins, but definitely winnable games compared to maybe the other two. I think they get those bounce back games there. So I can
Okay.
obviously see them losing three straight because they just lost to Stanford. So loss against UCLA, loss against Oregon State. I think they get it back versus Arizona. I think they then win at Washington State, and then that Utah game, to me, after having three straight losses, then getting two wins, that Utah game could be the one that I say maybe they win it. Last game of the season, right? Um, you know, that's where I could see maybe they've turned it around towards the end of the season a little bit. But yeah, I
Okay.
mean, if they lose to Arizona, and so they would have gone four straight losses. If they lose that Arizona game, then they're not going to be bowl eligible. Like I'll say that now. If they lose that Arizona game, they will not be bowl eligible because at most they get 5 wins.
Yeah.
So that Arizona game is going to be crucial for them because that's going to be like, can you turn it around after really tough stretch in the Pac-12 right there. So
Right.
we'll see what
Right.
happens, but I still think they're bowl eligible. Okay, well that's going to do it for us here at More Than Numbers. Appreciate you guys tuning in to listen. Do us a favor, please hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and
Share
as
with your
always,
friends.
leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts on any of the segments that we talked about. Share with your friends, as Dave mentioned. We will be back in the next couple weeks. Look forward to seeing everybody then.
Bye.